Good morning. Hopefully, everybody's off to an excellent start after a beautiful weekend and what will be a beautiful week in Milwaukee. It's a beautiful day. It's May 5th. We'll get rocking and rolling. Couple thoughts and comments to start. Um, One, hopefully, again, last week's commentary was more so to keep you informed as to what's going on and what's happening in the world. Not as much of a consumer-facing content, but more so of I just want to make sure you guys are aware so that you don't, hey, what's going on? I think most of you don't really care, which is the appropriate energy to have. I don't either. But I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up. Two, the reason why I was actually out of town again last week is I had an opportunity to hear a keynote speech from a Harvard Business School professor. His name's Tom DeLong. I'm going to bring you that content next week. I got to kind of frame it appropriately to bring it to you. But when I have an opportunity to hear from someone incredible, I always try and take the time to do it. And part of it is modeling. Like I'm a big believer in personal growth and development. And if I can go to Chicago and learn, I'm going to jump at that opportunity to continue to grow myself personally. So I'm going to bring you that content next week. This morning, we have quite a few updates for you from a compliance standpoint. And then I'll go deep into the April numbers. There's some trends to be aware of, but also I want to make sure that you have the appropriate dialogue as to what's happening because it's an interesting market right now. And the commentary I'm getting from you guys from an agent perspective is quite frankly all over the board. And so I took a deep dive into the April data to help you make sense of what's happening because here's an interesting factoid. Expired listings are up 45% versus last year. Days on market are up 15%. And yet I know that the market is as competitive as it's ever been. I took a deep dive into the price of oil, the S&P 500, and so many other factors to help you make sense when clients ask you what's happening, both on the listing side and the buyer side, so that you're educated enough to speak to it. And I brought back the ever popular grocery store market of the moment script. Sound good? Sweet. So let's jump into it. Mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. Admittedly, like I was trying to think of something to really highlight this week, and I just have one like really simple update. God, I don't even know why, but I ran into Joan last week. It was the best part of my week. Uh, I ran into Joan. Unfortunately, we were at a funeral. But I spent 20 minutes with Joan, and it was the best 20 minutes of my week. I said, Joan, how are you doing? And I felt like she was floating on clouds. She said she's 10 toes up. She's read more books in the last 2 months than she has in the last 20 years. And she had an effervescence about her, is about just what I love about her. It was great time spent with her. I don't even know why. She's been gone already. But I just wanted you to know she's doing well. She misses the group. I told her she doesn't need to be a stranger, and she's welcome back anytime. But I love her like I love my mom. It's the truth. So, God, why am I still like? All right, let's jump into new updates. All right. Last week, or just as a reminder, we have about 2 weeks to go till Red Day. We have roughly 200 people that have registered across some great organizations. Quite frankly, most of our volunteer destinations are what I would consider to be sold out, but we still do have time for you to register. We've really simplified it. We're asking you 3 hours of your time to pour into your community. It's amazing. I'll give you a sneak peek. Tom DeLong's presentation last week, a portion of it was actually the science and the brain wiring behind gratitude, but not as much around how you express it emotionally or how you think about it. It's actually how you act on it and how when you act on gratitude, how it actually rewires your brain. And you want to show how you can act on gratitude, participate in Red Day. It's an incredible way to spend 3 hours with your peers at a variety of different organizations to give back where we live. And if interested, it's Thursday, May 14th from roughly 9 to noon. There are portions in the afternoon if you need an afternoon portion as well. And we'd love for you to jump in. Next, last week we announced a leadership update. Eileen has been welcomed back to the fold, one of our incredible boomerangs. Eileen was with us for several years, then took the managing broker position for First Weber up in Mequon, and she'll be helping us lead our compliance efforts in the background, reviewing compliance files. Quite frankly, there's a high volume of compliance files, but also she'll be leading our compliance efforts with the direct relationships with our future to be named, hint, hint, will be coming soon, Mequon location, as well as the Prestige location out in Germantown. So just wanted to make sure we touched on that. And as a reminder, here's the updated org chart of those that serve you. Last week, I talked a little bit around how we look at our ratios, student to teacher ratios in the school platform. And it's in a service-based model. And that's what we believe we're in the business of, is service. We look at our ratios to make sure that we're getting you the appropriate resources and answers when you need it in a dates and deadlines business. So Eileen, welcome again to the team. All right, with that, John Ola's got a quick Cream City Mortgage update for you because the markets have been a little bit of a yo-yo.
All right, good morning, everybody. All right, so similar to kind of what we've been talking about the last couple of weeks of oil going up, so mortgage rates kind of doing the same. Not a good week for rates. There was an announcement of a potential missile strike on a U.S. warship yesterday, so we saw rates kind of climb up a little bit. So kind of a roller coaster with rates. I'd say check with your lender just to kind of make sure where you're at when you're writing offers. We're closer to the mid sixes right now. First-time home buyers closer to that 6.3. So as of last Friday, there's a couple major updates for those of you that work with VA loans, particularly with appraisals. So the first one is peeling or chipped paint on homes built after 1978 is now considered just cosmetic. So keynote 1978, which is pretty huge. Yeah, so I'd still say with houses built before 1978, which is most houses in Milwaukee, it's still going to apply, but I'd like to think that maybe the appraisers kind of lighten up a little bit on that. So something to note. And then the second, which is pretty cool as well, outbound buildings are excluded. So like anything that might happen with a garage, a barn, a shed, a fence won't be called out by an appraiser. So we'll see a little bit more flexibility and we won't see appraisals hold up things in terms of closing. So that's an appraiser. All right, that's all I got for you guys.
Wait.
That's super exciting news.
There you go. Well, Lieutenant, what do these guys need to be paying attention to as it relates to property damage after an AO?
Awesome. Okay, so in the wake of the storms this past month, we thought we would revisit this provision. So this is the property damage between acceptance and closing provisions. So I'm not going to read this line by line, but this is found on page 8 of the offer to purchase. And this is just essentially the roadmap that we need to take when there's damage done to a house, right? So next slide, I bullet pointed out. So if there is damage, the seller needs to promptly notify the buyer in writing. We can do this via a notice. That's not required. We can also do this via email. But the kind of the guideline here is like a 5% threshold. So if the total cost of the damage is less than 5% of the purchase price, seller is obligated to restore the property, provide lien waivers and required permits, and then all parties are required to still move to closing. So if we're above that 5% threshold, so if the damage exceeds 5% of the purchase price, then the buyer now has options and has the option to terminate, of course. But then, of course, obviously, the parties can come to an agreement on how to repair going forward. If the buyer would like to move forward, buyer is entitled to insurance proceeds, if any, and those would be held in trust. So we can visit that if that is the case. But again, kind of just be reminded of this 5% threshold when it comes to this. And then the biggest question that we get around this is that how it relates to the inspection contingency. And this is outside of the inspection contingency. So even if there was no inspection as a part of the offer, you would still follow this provision. If you're past inspection, if you're still negotiating inspection, then you would still be following this provision, property damage between acceptance and closing. So inspection contingency has nothing to do with it. If it's not possible to make repairs prior to closing, buyer and seller can come to another agreement, of course. So they can escrow for the work, they can do a purchase price reduction, they can do a seller credit. And then finally, and this is really important, the seller has no duty to amend the real estate condition report regarding damage done after acceptance. So if we do provide a revision to the real estate condition report, then that opens up buyer rescission rights. So essentially, we just need to follow this very specific provision around property damage. So, okay, again, in the wake of all of these storms, we've had to field a lot of questions about this. So, okay, next up, new photo requirements for MLS. So there is a new transparency focused photo policy. And then this is in the wake of the passage of Act 69. So this is a statutory requirement. This is not an MLS mandate. So I really want that to be mindful of that. And, you know, it's not MLS bringing the hammer down on us. This is the new state requirement due to Act 69. So we are required to upload the original unaltered photo and then immediately follow that with the watermarked altered photo. Listings with altered images must include the phrase "photos are digitally altered" in the public remarks. And we'll also resend out this email from MLS. Some examples then. So next slide. Oh, this is how to add it. So the watermark will appear in the top left corner of the photo. Once you add the watermark, you cannot remove it. And you can only add the watermark to individual photos. You cannot apply it to multiple photos at once. So here's an example. When you upload a photo and label it, you'll see that blue dot there. And then some common questions around this. So do I have to add a watermark to a photo if I add a fireplace, or if I add a fire to the fireplace as digitally altered? For fireplaces, you are welcome to add a fire and not mark the photo as long as the fireplace is functional. If I have, can I add a watermark to a photo if I change the color of the sky? No, you do not need to add that to, like, you know, one of our favorite photographers uses blue sky enhancement. You do not need to adjust the photo for that. Do I have to add a watermark to a photo if I remove a yard sign, declutter a room, or remove photos off of a wall? No, you don't have to mark those as digitally altered because you are not changing the true and current condition of the physical house. So, okay. And then lastly, a revised real estate condition report. Just one question has been revised and to allow for examples. So in section F7, are you aware of restrictive covenants or deed restrictions on the property? It used to just be this simple question. And now the real estate condition report allows for, or gives us examples, excuse me, of what this might mean. So a restrictive covenant or deed restriction may include a provision that imposes a resale price limits, occupancy requirements, or other restrictions for a specific period of time. So again, I think in the increase in these WIDA grants, there might be requirements on these developments in terms of resale. So they're just getting ahead of that. So it might not be, you guys might not come across this too much. So, but wanted to point it out. All right, on the compliance helpline, again, of course, call or text us, 414-368-9359. You will get the speediest answer if you call the hotline or text it. Thanks, that was a lot.
Cool. Thanks, Lieutenant Steph. The clarity around watermarks is about as clear as a fish tank that's been there for a while. We'll help you work through it. Just know that these things are coming and we're going to have to figure out how to navigate the way of the world. We don't have all the answers today, and Like I would have thought you would have said, hey, there's a fire in the fireplace, but I guess you don't. My point being is we'll work through it and navigate it as the enforcement continues to get tighter. Make sense? Beautiful. All right. With that, Linz, you got a tech and marketing update. What do these guys need to know?
Right, good morning, everybody. So there was a exciting update to command accounts last week, which just gives more flexibility to these accounts, especially when working with a transaction coordinator. So I'm going to dive into that this morning. So what this looks like, all personal accounts in command will now be personal business accounts. So what does this mean exactly? Your account will now show up as first name, last name, and then business, as you can see in the on the screen here. So this change essentially just allows individual agents to add and remove guest users, as well as add team members if you choose, straight from your command account in your settings. So previously, guest users were only available to add if you had a team account. Now, if you're an individual agent, you can add a guest user if you're using a transaction coordinator. And it's essentially being able to give access to your command account to anyone that you're working with. So you no longer have to have them log in with your own username and password and then get that authentication code and experience that back and forth. So agents will have full control over that team member's access to their command accounts and their applet-based permissions via the team management section. So when you add a guest user, you can also control their permission levels and what they have access to in terms of what applets they are able to see. And guests and agents will have the ability to be on multiple teams in the same market center across market centers. So these changes allow for flexibility of team management for all associates without any major shifts in how command already works for you. So if you're an individual agent and you're not working with anybody else, you don't have to worry about anything. It just, again, expands the capabilities of your command accounts. All right. A couple new materials via our marketing concierge. So we have local farmers markets and the Milwaukee Summer Festival schedules out. So like all of our 12 direct campaigns, these are available as a postcard, a social media post, and an email smart plan in command. So those are live. If you're looking to send out those emails in command, go into the smart plan library and search KW Milwaukee. You will find that entire library with all of these updated emails to send out. All right, we're back with Battle of the Vibes. We're on to round 2. And we've got a fun little video. I bet all that get to my head. I don't care, I pay the town rent. Turn it up, it's your favorite song. Dance, dance, dance to the distortion. Shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah, shimmy, yeah. La, la, la. I'm a cool girl. I'm a cool girl. Ice cold, I roll my eyes at you. Boy, like, yeah, get your nails done. Thank you, Willis. I bet. You can hit that. All right. So like I said, we're on to round 2, battle 1. So congrats to our round 1 winners. This week we have Mary Beth against Bianca and Veronica against Rashadim. So check out those videos up on our stories on our Instagram page and vote for your favorite vibe. This week is all about trendy vibes. So they're taking what's trending on Instagram and TikTok and making it real estate. So check those videos out and vote for your favorite. Winners will be posted on Friday. So, and as a reminder, voting lasts 24 hours. So check it out today and vote. Share them. They're fun. All right, that's all I got. Thanks, guys.
All right, well, what do these guys need to be paying attention to as it relates to education events and things we got coming up for them?
Yeah, so first of all, we're super excited. We have a new swag store that just opened. It'll be open for 2 weeks. There's tons more items than the previous store, and you also have a choice of 2 different logos that you can put on all your swag. So every item, there's 2 different logo choices for you. Way more options than there were in the previous store. So definitely check that out. Once it closes, then the items will be made and shipped. The MREA podcast, this past week, sorry to change the date on that. But we'll just skip this, Charlie.
All right.
So the 90-day passport, if you're in the PC program, hopefully you've picked up your passport by now. If not, swing by the front desk. We have lots of exciting prizes to give away starting on the 15th. The May calendar is out. Hopefully everybody saw all the fun things that are coming up this month. We have a lot going on. Up next, we have a lunch and learn today at noon in the Southwest office. I think that's on the next slide, Charlie, and it's all around fraud prevention. So how you can recognize fraud that's happening, how you can stop fraud from happening, how you can get title involved. So that's hosted by Nightberry and Focus Title today. Then the KW Luxury Call is tomorrow at 10 a.m. These calls are open to all agents, whether or not you are designated luxury. They're free to attend and hop on in real time. The link's in the weekly email and the calendar. Brewed for Success tomorrow. So this is a full day workshop from 9 to 4 in the New Berlin office. If you want to have a little bit more understanding about investing and what that means, all the terminology, how to work with investors at a higher level, or maybe you're looking to start your own investing business, I highly recommend you jump over to New Berlin tomorrow for this workshop. And then on Thursday morning on Google Meet, we have MAPS coach Lucas Hine, continuing our theme of AI and what you need to know. So he's going to really be talking about taking your roadmap, your daily business plan, and executing upon it utilizing AI tools. So taking what you have for your GPS, your goals, your 411, your daily activities, and how to automate that using AI to really get yourself into action and to make sure that you're executing upon the most important things for your business. So that's going to be Thursday morning on Google Meet. Everybody should have the link. I highly recommend you jump on and take a listen. We will get a recording afterwards, but I think being in real time and being able to ask questions of the presenter is always a benefit. This Thursday, we have a lunch and learn with Movement Mortgage in the TOSA office at 10:30. So that's kind of right after the Lucas Hine presentation. Movement Mortgage is a newer vendor partner of ours that's come into our world. And so if you want to hear more about their business model and how they can help your clients, highly recommend you come over to Innovation on Thursday. And then once again, we have a huge lineup of guest speakers. We're barely getting started on it with Lucas Hine. And really up next on May 19th is going to be Marcus Green. So we have a little video about what Marcus is going to offer on the 19th.
Hey everybody, I am so excited to spend the day with you talking about something I'm very passionate about, which is AI in the real estate space. The truth of the matter is this: AI is part of almost every real estate transaction that is happening across the country. The question is this: if AI is part of the transactional experience, who is inviting AI to the table and controlling the narrative around that experience? In my opinion, as a producing agent myself, it is our job as real estate agents to learn this skill set, to utilize AI, to leverage a lot of the administrative tasks throughout the process, which will allow you to be more human, connect at a higher level, provide better service to your clients. A lot of the way agents are using AI right now, frankly, they're using it as a toy. They're using it as a gimmick, which is fun in some ways, but it actually is working against the relationship with the consumer. And so the premise and title of the class we're going to be talking about is how do you go from using AI as a toy to a tool to a teammate? And what I mean by a tool is a lot of us are barely scratching the surface of actually using it as a functional tool or leverage within our organization. We're almost using it like a glorified Google. When if you could just learn a few skills that we'll go through in this class, you will elevate AI to actually be a leveraged tool within your organization. And then the next level, the next element of your business is when you go from toy to teammate. And this is when you have an actual teammate trained on a specific job role that knows how to show up and act in accordance with your value proposition within your organization. This has been a game changer for me, and I can't wait to share the experience with you. Be sure to check with your Market Center leadership on the exact time and location. Come with your A game. I promise to do the same. We're going to have a great day together, and we're all going to leave better. All right, can't wait to see you there. Hey, everybody.
So
I am
is-
so excited.
There we go. This is going to be a free class for everybody. It's from 9 to noon at the Zufari Center in Tosa. Please register so we know you're attending. Want to make sure we have enough coffee for everybody. And that way we can also get all the information out to you ahead of time. So please come to Marcus Green on Tuesday, May 19th. This is in place of team meetings. So what else are you going to be doing Tuesday morning? You're coming to this.
Sweet. Thanks, Woot. All right, now I'm jumping into April Insights. A lot of different things going on, different things you need to be paying attention to, and things that you want to get ahead of. Okay. And I'll walk you through what that means and what that looks like. What I did too is I went back and gave you in January, I gave you my market predictions, and I wanted to just through the month of April year to date, give you kind of what we see and where we're at. I believe the market will be up 4% this year in closed units. Today, year to date, the market's up 1%. A lot of that can be made up through May, June, July. There's so much market activity that what I basically did was yellow is still to be seen. Closed dollar volume so far year to date, market's up 6%. I predicted it would be up 8%. Again, still some runway to go. I provided a commentary that I think rates will stabilize and hover between 6 to 6.2. Obviously, and I said one of the big caveats to that is a potential geopolitical conflict, and that showed up. So we'll see where that kind of rates out. And then inventory, my prediction was we would see a thawing and unlocking of inventory, and we expect inventory to rise. That is true, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Demand, I continue to talk about how demographics are in our favor over the next 5 years, and then the Wisconsin advantage as a region from an employment, affordability, and the low incidence of natural disaster and the high availability of fresh water will continue to be favorable for us within our region in the coming years to come. So let's jump into it. When you look at new inventory units in the month of April, there was 2,693 units that came to the market. It was up 4% versus April of last year and up 9% versus April of 24. Despite the roller coaster of the rate market, new inventory continues to be this slow build. And I gave you some commentary earlier in the year that it's just going to be every market that dips, and we experienced that massive dip. It's a slow grind out. Typically, once you have a dip, it takes about 8 to 12 years within a cycle to climb back. You're experiencing that climb now. It just is much slower than we would probably like it to be, but new inventory growing is a positive thing for our market. Okay. Total inventory units are also up. There were 6,233 available units in the month of April. It was up nearly 6% and up 13% versus April of 24. Overall, when you consider the demand element of our market, inventory still remains tight, but the fact that we're continuously growing in the rising tide is all positive because if we have more homes would be sold based on the demand metrics we're seeing. Here's my word of caution to you. Through Q1, expired inventory was relatively negligible, and then all of a sudden it absolutely spiked in April. Okay. Expired inventory units were up 45% versus April of last year and up 35% versus April of 24. Guys, you have to pay attention, and this is, I believe, directly correlative to some of the metrics that we're seeing in days on market growing. It's not impacting pricing in the way that you would expect, but again, people have recency bias. And we have to over-communicate to navigate the recency bias and the need for immediate gratification in terms of the timing of this. And we have to be more articulate around understanding our clients' needs from a timing perspective, or you run the risk of being canceled. Now, on the flip side to that, and I've been saying this for years because expired inventory has been spiking for the last 3 years, there's also an incredible opportunity to be number 2 in the marketplace because when people go to the market and then they come off the market, they're still signaling that there's an opportunity there. And if you want to diversify your lead generation strategy as it relates to your listings, expired inventory is more robust than it has been in prior spring markets. Okay. Sales absorption rate. This is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract in a given month. In the month of April, roughly 32% of all inventory went under contract. It was down 4% versus April of 25 and down 10% versus April of 24. Demand has leveled again, this is a 1 month window. 1 month can be an anomaly, 2 months is a trend. It's not growing, but it didn't fall off a cliff either. And I have some commentary as to why I believe that to be true. Okay. And a lot of it has to do with uncertainty. Buyers don't take action unless they have certainty and you provide them stability. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is walk you through where I think that uncertainty is showing up to give you the actual information versus what we might pontificate on what we read on Twitter. Okay. Here's the truth. When you look at crude oil, I had a commentary several weeks ago that helped you guys understand the spikes in crude oil and how it impacts mortgages. When you look at crude oil over the last 6 months, it's up roughly 74%. Okay. When oil spikes, everything spikes. The plastic spikes, your veggies spike. Everything is dependent on oil. Okay. It's an inflationary. So what happens when oil spikes? Mortgage rates spike. That uncertainty creates noise in airwaves. Okay. And then I took a look at the mortgage rate and I just looked at the last 60 days. Okay. The 30-year fixed mortgage in February 26th was 5.9%. Okay. And on April 2nd, it was 6.4%. So we had roughly in the matter of 30 days, we went from 5.9 to 6.4, and then it went back down again. And today it's sitting right around 6.3%. Again, that level of uncertainty creates noise in the airwaves that doesn't help our industry. When people are seeking stability, they're seeking certainty, and a lot of uncertainty is what creates the noise that we have to be able to provide and speak to with confidence in order to get people to act. Okay. But here's the interesting thing in all of this. So we talk about oil, we talked about rates. When you look at the S&P over the last 6 months, it's up roughly 6%. Okay. Admittedly, I'm not entirely sure what to make of all of it because there's so much chaos right now. But my point to it is this. The reason why demand, despite the uncertainty and rates rising, hasn't totally fallen off a cliff is people's balance sheets are still relatively healthy. Okay. And so from a stock market and a capital markets perspective, the reason why I believe demand still to remain healthy outside of the demographic nature of the data is that people are seeking allocation opportunities to place their capital. Again, residential real estate in southeastern Wisconsin is a very safe and stable asset. We've seen that over the history of time. And so I'll talk about that here more in a second. But here's the word of caution again to listing agents. We know that expired listing inventory is up 45% within our market, yet and a lot of it has to do days on market are up 4 days versus last year, or up 15%. On average, it's 32 days on market for a house in southeastern Wisconsin. Okay. Geographically, that varies, but on average across the 5-county metro area, it's 32 days. Units that are going under contract, this is what's interesting. New inventory is up roughly 4%, but units that went under contract is only up 1%. Okay. So while we saw a spike in new inventory, a spike is relative term. Okay. But when we saw a spike of new inventory units going onto the market, only seeing a 1% increase is an interesting number I will be paying attention to as we head into May and June. Okay. And it's up 2% versus April of 24. My comment here is that demand has not subsided per se, but buyers are entering the market more cautiously. Impacts on pricing. This is the first month where we've started to see a real true impact on pricing. Okay. Again, 1 month is an anomaly, 2 months is a trend. The anomaly here is we went from in Q1, a pretty healthy 6 to 7% increase throughout Q1 of 2026 to only up 2% on average and 2% on the median in southeastern Wisconsin. And when you look at the average price per square foot, only up 1.4%. It's something I'll be paying attention to as we get deeper into the spring. Okay. Now, last week, we shared with you after the commentary, in the commentary with Jay around what his feelings and what he was experiencing within the market. Here's what's winning in the market. Here's what's totally throwing me off. Despite all the data and what the market is signaling that buyers to be more cautious, the market is still highly competitive. And what that's telling me is that when buyers are choosing to act, they're acting with urgency. You can see that within the data. list price to accepted offer ratios. You can see from an inspection contingency standpoint, you can see where that's impacting co-broke compensation. So all of that leads me to my grocery store market of the moment script for you. Okay. Demand of the market. My comment here is demand has remained consistent. Buyers are proceeding cautiously due to global uncertainty. Yet our internal data tells us it has not loosened the competitive nature. When buyers are choosing to act, they're acting with urgency. Inventory, new inventory coming to the market continues to be healthy versus prior years. We're still not seeing a major pop that would alleviate the continued shortage of inventory, but the tide is indeed rising. There are two kinds of sellers in today's market. Those that have to sell because of life events, which makes up roughly 75% of the market. And an interesting demographic that I think is going to continue to rise is those wanting to cash in on their equity or appreciation, which is roughly right now 25% of the market. 25% of the market, you have to remember, is more patient because they're choosing to sell when they get the right number. The other 75% of the market is choosing to sell because of acting on urgency. And so you have these two different sellers, and as you're navigating the market, you have to kind of understand who you're negotiating with as it relates to their sense of urgency in the transaction. Okay, rate of sale and velocity. Homes are moving at similar rates as they were. Okay, expireds increase pace because sellers are impatient. We have to continue to set expectations, communicate, and price appropriately. And we are in a cautious yet competitive market. Global economic trends have people uncertain. There's been a yo-yo effect on rates. People's balance sheets are still healthy because the stock market continues to give people confidence. And so my word to you is that we are in a cautiously optimistic yet competitive market. When people are acting, they're acting with urgency. And on the other side, as it relates to the listings, we have to understand who it is that we're dealing with and what their desired outcomes are, whether you're the listing agent or the buyer's agent trying to get to a common ground, because we're seeing that despite some of what you might consider to be a level of maybe cooling down, it's not impacting the competitiveness when people decide to act. Does that make sense? Cool. You're probably all feeling it. It's just, I wanted to give some commentary as to what you might be feeling and experiencing to help you navigate what's going on. So 3 weeks ago, when I was nearly dead, I tried to articulate something that I just want to reiterate with you in the spring market. I appreciate it. And it goes back to the commentary of why people list with you. My goal today was to give you knowledge. Your job is to demonstrate it through your skills and how you show up as your attitude. And they work with you because they know you, like you, and respect you. We know this. Why? Because nearly 90% of all transactions on both the listing side and the buyer side, they only interview 1 or 2 people. Okay? And why do they list with you? You have to, and this is the reason I'm reiterating this, is because the highest incidence of or 45% increase in expired listings is your communication fundamentals have to be on point. In the big 3, and this, I pulled this from Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Remember, you're walking into somebody's home. Give honest and sincere appreciation and focus on what their outcomes are. Okay? The supportive 6, or be genuinely interested in who they are. Smile, remember other people's names. It's shocking to me how many people miss that. Encourage others to talk about themselves, talk about their interests, make others feel important. And the 4 fundamentals of your job as a listing agent is to secure the listing, market the listing, sell the listing, and market the sale, because your 2 primary objectives with every listing is to ensure that you have 2 babies. And I'm reiterating this during the height of the spring market to ingrain this in terms of how you navigate continuously building scale to your businesses. Okay? And when you think about having 2 babies, it's a direct referral, an organic lead that came from your marketing activities. The time is now. As I shared with you several weeks ago, it is time to go. Level set with where we are, understanding that days on market are increasing. Buyers are more cautious, yet they are competitive, right? Navigate how you manage those relationships from a listing perspective, and you'll continuously do fine because the data tells us that you guys are absolutely killing it, right? How do I know it? Because I looked at the productivity report on a year-to-date basis. The market's up 6%. We are a reflection of a collective group. We're up 12% collectively. When we look at it on a close per transaction basis, on a per associate basis, our average agent does 112% more closed dollar volume and 80% more closed units per agent in the marketplace. Again, this is a testament to you. And the reason I share this with you is to give confidence in you because you're badass at what you do. And lean on those to the left of you and the right of you to help you navigate what it is that you do and how you do it. From a trends perspective here, I pulled it against the top 10 brands in the marketplace so you can see who's winning. And then I share with you the luxury statistics because I know everyone has an aspiration to raise price points and use the data to help you do it. What's fascinating, we used to sell roughly 1 in every 4 homes. Now we're selling 1 in every 3 homes within the luxury space, and we're selling 2.4x more than number 2. Okay? And we're selling them 30% faster. My point being is the people that you surround yourself are wickedly talented. Learn from them. Learn from them. I go back to the Simon Sinek video I've shared a million times over in the last 10 years. It's knowing how to ask for help when you need help is a skill set that you absolutely need to understand because it will make you better at who you are and how you deliver your value prop. And here's the trends perspective over the last 12 months within the luxury space. Sound good? You guys are incredible at what you do. We're in an interesting market. Buyers are cautiously optimistic, yet highly competitive. And listings, sellers in particular, have a tendency to have a short leash with listing agents. We're seeing it because the data is telling us. It's our job is to communicate our skill set, show up with a great attitude, showcase your knowledge, and you'll be absolutely fine and you'll continue to do great things. Sound good? Love it. Next week, I look forward to sharing you my notes from the keynote I attended with Tom DeLonge from Harvard Business School. And with that, it's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. Thanks, guys, for showing up.